On today's episode, we continue our artist appreciation series by taking a trip down to Mexico to visit with today's special guest on GonstFM Off Air. Welcome, ghouls, ghoulettes, and guesties to GonstFM Off Air, the official podcast companion to 66.6 GonstFM, the radio station dedicated to the band Ghost and the wider Gonst community, broadcasted live once per month on the Station Head app. I'm your host, Richie, aka Papa X, as so lovingly named by all of you Gonstlings. Today's guest is somebody I've wanted to speak with for a very long time. He first caught my attention on Instagram with his Ghost fan art, and then I ventured to more of his stuff and saw Evil Dead, Mandy, Spider-Man, and so much more. All of this we're going to get into for sure because we have a ton in common and lots to speak about. So ghouls, ghoulettes, and guesties alike, please give a very warm welcome to my guest today, Puis Calzada. How's it going, dude?
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, dude, not a problem. You and I have been back and forth on Instagram for some time as far as liking posts and sharing interests with things. And we've been communicating in DM just because I think you're really hugely talented and I love your work.
Thank
dude. And it's just been a lot of fun. And I saw so much more stuff that you do outside of your ghost artwork, which we'll eventually get into. But there's so much in common that I saw that we had. I saw work that you've done, artwork of the movie Mandy, Freddy Krueger, Marvel comic characters, and this is all in my wheelhouse. And I was like, I have to talk to this guy. So what got you into art in the first place? Was it comic books? Did you see maybe horror movie art, forever ago that you were like, oh, this is great, and you kind of delved into that? What's your story with all that?
I started with that Spider-Man cartoon, the one in the 70s, aired on Mexico in the 80s. So I was very young in the 80s, probably 5-6 years old. And I love the Spider-Man cartoon. I love the character. So I started drawing the character. And then I discovered there were comic books about Spider-Man. So I started collecting comic books and I started copying the pages in my attempts to do my own comics. So I keep practicing, keep working on that, and I started getting better at it. So I thought, maybe I want to do this for life. So by then, a few years later, I was starting to watch horror movies. So I saw the Exorcist and Suspiria from Dario Argento. And I was impressed. Obviously, I was traumatized, but I love the fact that I could be on a very scary situation and nothing is happening to me. So that's why I fell in love with horror movies. So you can put yourself on dangerous situations without being harmed. It's like going on a roller coaster. So. At one point, I tried to get my two passions, comics and horror movies, together, and I started to look for horror comic books. I discovered these pre-code era comics that were fantastic, and it helped me get my own voice, my own style. So, now I'm doing a lot of horror comics for a company that's called American Mythology Productions. I do comics for movies like Hatchet, for Willy's Wonderland, My Bloody Valentine, and so many more. I love the fact that I can work with characters from movies I love, and I get to draw with them, and I get to tell new stories about them.
Right out of the gate, Spider-Man. Spider-Man was one of my first comic books that I ever read. And, it was before I knew who, inked them or penciled them or wrote for them. It was just, pages and pages of fantasy. And that was what I was into. I loved the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends cartoon, and of course,
I love that one.
Yeah, and of course the 1990s from I think it was 1994 when it debuted, the one here in America that debuted on Fox, and that I think of most of them, that was one of the most popular ones because I remembered the 1960s cartoon because they would air reruns whenever I was growing up. I was at my grandparents' house, and so I don't remember what channel it was, but they would air reruns. And it was back when you looked at the back of Spider-Man and the red spider only had 6 legs. And I always remembered being like, why are there 6 legs? Spider has 8, just stuff like that. But I remember, I think the very first time that I got interested in a Spider-Man story properly, instead of just, picking up a random comic book, was when Todd McFarlane started his run. Yeah. And that, I think, to me, that's one of my favorite runs of Spider-Man is Todd McFarlane's run, because from there I discovered Spawn, which, to get into like how you combine horror and comics, I think Spawn was one of the very first times I remembered saying, oh, you can get dark, in these comics, So Spawn was something that I thoroughly enjoyed as well. And horror movies, like my family owned a video store from like the late 80s into the early to mid 90s.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, dude. So like I was always perusing the horror section, and some of my first horror movies were like A Nightmare on Elm Street and Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn. And those are two of my very favorite franchises like ever. So seeing your art, like when you would post like stuff from Evil Dead or like Freddy Krueger, and then even like Venom, your Venom work is outstanding, which I love all your work, but like every time I see the Venom stuff, I'm like, Venom is one of those characters that so many artists have so many different interpretations of, but you kind of mesh a bunch of stuff, but it's your own view and it's your own vision of it, and it's great because you're welcome to like delving in horror. Venom is absolutely a frightening character. If you don't know anything, if you don't know Eddie Brock, that kind of personality, and there's a little bit of humor in there too. If you don't know that, you would just think this is like a straight horror villain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's very inspired on the Alien franchise. I think the appearance of Venom is like the alien. And I think it will be a great horror character if they take it more seriously. I would love if the possibility to work for Marvel with that character.
Given what they've done with the Tom Hardy, have you seen the Tom Hardy movies?
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
I know they're kind of hit or miss for people. I kind of went into those movies with the expectation that it wasn't going to be too serious, and I knew they couldn't do too much with it, considering how the Sony and Disney kind of like sharing of the Spider-Man property has been working. So I think what I'm looking forward to eventually, hopefully one day, would be getting a proper R-rated horror movie about Venom, because
that would be great.
Yeah, because I know right now I think it's been kind of in development hell with Spawn, but I know Todd McFarlane has been more hands-on with whatever he's going to do with that character next as far as film goes.
Todd is a big influence on my work, and when he was drawing Spider-Man, they give him his own title that was only labeled Spider-Man, not amazing, not spectacular, just Spider-Man. Right. And he worked as a storyline with Wolverine, and Spider-Man met Wendigo, and there was a child murder. This is strong stuff for a comic book at that time.
Yeah. When I started noticing Marvel getting into, I don't want to use the term more adult storyline, but whenever they started gearing their stories openly more towards, teens and like young adults, if you will, I think that's when I started taking note of the Punisher and also a lot of other comic book characters crisscrossing into each other. Because, when I first got into comic books, and the first time that I saw like the Silver Surfer in the X-Men world, or Spider-Man in the Fantastic Four universe, I was like, wait, is this all connected? I was young at this time, so I didn't know that was a thing. And so when I figured out that all my favorite characters just happen to be in each other's comic books, I was like, okay, so this is an expanded universe. And then you drop in characters that are completely based in reality, because this is obviously all fantasy. But if you drop a character like Punisher, like if you drop a character like Frank Castle in the middle of all of it, you have a human element that is insanely believable. And the horror that comes along with a real human story, that this could probably happen to anybody out there. That's when I started taking real note of, okay, they're not just silly, they can get serious. And then, especially with Peter Parker, who I think is one of the most grounded, realistic
superhero.
Yeah, he's one of the most grounded and realistic characters out there. So that's always fun to delve into and read.
Yeah, I remember this storyline, the Kraven's Last Hunt. That was very dark storyline. It was about Craven killing Spider-Man. He's not really killing him, but he buries him alive and starts dressing as Spider-Man and trying to understand why Spider-Man do the things he do. And at the end, it's very aggressive because Craven takes his own life. And it was very dark for the time when Spider-Man was a funny, crack-joking character. And taking him to this point when he's fighting for escaping this tomb, and then Craven is, posing as him, and he's just recently married to Mary Jane. It's all very strange for a fun character like Spider-Man, but it was one of the coolest storylines I ever read.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it more impactful. The way you described it is that Spider-Man has always been such a fun, lighthearted character, and he cracks jokes, and there's a little bit of seriousness, but not too far. But then you have stories where even way back then, where the Green Goblin basically causes Gwen Stacy's death. Yeah, and then you moved it. Kraven's Last Hunt, dude. I'm glad you said something about that, because that story's always in the back of my head, but it's not something I outwardly talk about a whole bunch. And that's a great story. If anybody out there is into comics and wants to pick that story up in particular, that's a great read if you want to get into like the more serious side of Spider-Man. But going from like the darkness of that world, and then you delve into more horror movie stuff. So going into, some of your film stuff that you're into, like we've mentioned Evil Dead, which is cool because you mentioned Willy's Wonderland, which another Nick Cage movie that I want to talk about with you is Mandy, because I think a lot of people, they kind of look at Nick Cage and they're like, oh, he's going full, he's going full Cage and he's being crazy and he's being silly. But like, I think Mandy was one of those movies where that works for him because it delves into a psychological territory of realness as far as trauma, because there's one particular scene in that movie where it's the bathroom sequence where he's like, chugging the vodka after the, after the event that happens. And, people, they watch that out of context on YouTube and they're like, oh, they laugh at it. And I'm like, if you look at that movie and you look at that scene, that is incredibly heartbreaking. And I think anybody would go through that same thing, because in that sequence, he's conveying like 50 different emotions trying to push through into your brain at the same time, and he cannot process it. So the actions that happen after that fact, which visually that movie is stunning. I think Panos Cosmatos has done a fantastic job on that movie. And I'm looking forward to what he's going to do next, directorially speaking.
I don't know if you saw this Guillermo del Toro on Netflix, the show Cabinet of Curiosities.
Yes.
Panos has one episode, and I think this is the best episode of the series. It's really, really cool. It got Peter Weller, RoboCop's Peter Weller on it.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. Cosmatos got a very stylish form of cinema. It's so psychedelic, so full of colors, so crazy. I just love that on Mandy movie, and I don't think anybody will understand it, but it's just a fantastic director, Cosmatos.
I tell people all the time that Mandy is an experience. It's not like, it's not a movie, it's a full experience. And I think going in blind is one of the best ways to experience that film.
Yeah, I agree. I think you get experiences for yourself, and then you will find other people who likes it and talk for hours about it.
I was looking at your Cheddar Goblin stuff that you did.
I love doing that. That is one of the funniest parts of the movie. It's out of context. It's so weird. And when I was asked to do an official merchandise piece, I only can thought of that, a t-shirt with the Cheddar Goblin on it.
Yeah, because that's, and it's weird with that particular one, because not your drawing, but the character, because if you look at it, the way that it comes across, again, out of context, it's like, what the fuck is this? But if you look at it within the confines of the movie, That is a really strange way of conveying that, like, something traumatic just happened to this man, but life goes on in a,
exactly.
It's because he walks in from a traumatic event and that is what is on the TV. And he literally stops and just watches it for a second. And he just, Cheddar Goblin. And then just goes on like, that's again, going back to that realism of like processing trauma and like how life just continues on. But that character has taken on a life of its own as far as like just it's being memeable, and it's it's a good character to draw, and it's fucking hilarious.
It was a fun project, and it's a great movie, so being involved with that is fantastic.
Yeah. Getting into some of the other artwork as far as, why we're here today, I was scrolling on Instagram and I remembered seeing your drawing of Papa Emeritus I being shared. And I was like, oh my God, like I want to go check this out because it was so awesome. And I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, please let this be on a t-shirt. And then when I saw your post where it was like, it was a rejected design, I was thinking to myself, how the fuck, it was my opinion. I was like, how the hell did this get rejected? It's so good. And then I started noticing that you had done other drawings of like Papa 2, Papa 3, Papa 4, and then Cardinal Copia. And I was like, okay, so this is literally everything in my wheelhouse. The dude's a major Ghost fan, comic book guy, horror stuff. When did you get into Ghost? Like, was this like something that you've been into for a while, or are you kind of like new to the game? Like, how did that come about for you?
I started, I'm a big Metallica fan, as you know.
Yeah.
And I heard James Hetfield talk about Ghost. And I said, wait, if James like this, I must hear it. And so I started hearing the first 2 albums, and wow, I was blown away. All that theatricality, all the horror, all the references to the devil, to horror movies, to historic. I always liked these shock rock bands, Alice Cooper, Kiss, Rob Zombie. And Ghost was like that, but different. It was more, felt fresh for me. So I became a fan. I started listening to the first 2 albums, and then I lost track for a while of their work. And then I returned, and I was caught again. I love what they are doing, how the idea has evolved. And I just love it. It's so much fun. I had the chance to see them live last year, and it was an amazing show. I never seen them live, and I was blown away. Can't wait for this Thursday to see the movie. And that was it. I connected with them with Metallica, so I became a fan.
Yeah, and it's cool because I think that's how it should work as far as, people discovering other bands and stuff. Like, I've seen people that knew about Ghost from even back in 2010. I'm one of the newer, I consider myself one of the newer fans, but like, it's cool knowing that it still works, like word of mouth still works, and that bringing a band on tour with you to open for you still works because they open for Metallica. And I know several people that they heard of them in passing, but it wasn't until they toured with Metallica that they actually got to hear about them and see them and hear it and see it in action live in person, and it won them over. Now, for me, it was just a matter of time before I was like, well, let me just take the jump. I've told this story probably several times on this show, so I am sorry out there for those of you listening that have heard it. I'll shorten it up here. I went into a Hot Topic in like 2016-ish, and that was when Meliora was out. And the Square Hammer video was on the video wall, and I was like, what the hell is that? And I saw the t-shirts, and I asked the guy behind the counter, I was like, what's this? And I was like, oh, that's just Ghost. And I was like, just Ghost. Okay, I'll check it out later. And I have ADHD, so I just didn't check it out. And then 2018, I'm in another Hot Topic in Houston. Same thing happens, but I see it's like the Puis-Cal era. And I was like, okay, I'll check that out later. And then I never did. And then just a couple of years ago, like my partner was playing like a whole bunch of their music, and it was on a shuffle, so I didn't get like a full album experience. I heard pieces. And I said, there's no way this is the same band. There's no damn way it's the same band, and then when it was, I was like, this is so good. And then I heard Rats and I was hooked. So I listened to Puis Calzada as my very first listen, and then I went back and then I listened to their first two records, Opus Eponymous and Infestissimum, and I was like, this is exactly how you described. It's the horror, the spooky and the macabre meets some of my favorite genres of rock music. And I was just instantly hooked. I have not had a chokehold on me from a band like this in probably 20 years.
I agree. I was consuming everything they put out. It was impressive.
What was your first, because I've seen several of them posted, what was actually the first time that you drew something from the band?
It was a while back. I just was warming up. I just was warming up my hand. So I sketched Papa Emeritus too. And it was just a sketch. A friend of mine who also paints took the sketch and put some paint on it, and it went boom. Everyone liked it. So I thought, that was cool. And then I started following some artists who did the t-shirts. So, and I saw this. I love Sam Dunn, what she does. Their t-shirts are amazing. So I thought, maybe I can create some or official merchandise for these guys. And I started doing some more refined art for it and trying to find out who was producing their merch. And then I got to global merchandise, and I started pushing. I started trying to contact them, and they received some of the pieces that you have seen. And I tried to pass them as official merch, but the people responsible for the band merch told me that they didn't like exactly my style. I don't know why, but it seems like it's too comic booky, too cartoony. So Tobias is not on to that. So but I will keep trying. I promise you that.
Yeah, I was going to say definitely keep trying, because I guess to me it was mind-boggling, because like I said earlier, I was like, how the hell did this not make it? Because I've seen, so many different styles of, Papas come and go throughout their merch over the years. Yeah, definitely keep trying, because I think it would sell like a lot, like as official merch. It's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, dude, for sure. So keep hammering at that. The other stuff that I noticed like after that was, again, like, you said Metallica is what got you into them. And I've seen like you have a ton. You've had a ton of work that has been approved with Metallica. And dude, those are some of my favorite designs too. Like just outside of Ghost, like your Metallica work is fucking awesome. So how long have you been kind of working alongside them with all this stuff?
Well, I contacted first the company that their merch last year. That was last year, and I was trying to sell some ideas. And they asked for my portfolio. They reviewed it, and they gave me the job. They said, "Yeah, that's cool enough. So we want to produce some t-shirts for the tour." And I started working with them, and as you can imagine, it was dream come true. I love this. Metallica is my favorite band of all time. I don't think there are any bigger band than Metallica. So for me, it was since I was a kid that started listening to metal. I was in love with the t-shirts that the artist Pushead produced. That art was so inspiring. It influenced me in so many ways, and so. That was one of my life goals, to create art for Metallica. Man, we did it.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic.
Yeah, dude. And you did the Fortnite crossover that they're doing, man, because that's a very recent happening, because if anybody out there listening is a gamer, you know what Fortnite is. But if you don't know what Fortnite is, it's a free-to-play online game, and they have had a ton of crossover events. Like you've had Marvel characters in Fortnite, you've had musicians in Fortnite, and obviously like Metallica being one of the musicians that's in Fortnite, this is a brand new thing that just rolled out, and you just were able to finally share the artwork with that. And it looks awesome, man. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was a great opportunity for I think the band is doing something to get younger audiences. And I think that's a good strategy. And when I was asked I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement that was so tight.
Yeah.
I couldn't divulge anything. Not even my son knew I was working with Fortnite.
And that's a bummer, because I'm assuming he plays it, right?
Yeah, he's a big fan. And I didn't have the chance to tell him, look what I'm doing. I was working on that artwork, hiding it from him.
And I know that had to be kind of a pain in the ass to do, because I know if it was me, I'd want to tell my kid, like, dude, look at this, you know?
Yeah, it was hard. So now that it's out, my kid is, I'm the coolest father ever.
That's awesome, man. I love that so much. And like some of the Metallica designs have been featured on their tour also, which I think that's a bigger deal. It's because to me, it's one thing when you put, and this goes for any band design that you're able to accomplish. There's one thing to have it in their merch store, but it's another thing whenever it is a tour official design that gets taken out on the road physically in person for people to purchase right there on the spot. Because, you know, more often than not, which I actually haven't had this a terrible experience like this, but I know that there have been some times where, like, if you go and you look at something on a store online and then you buy it, but then it gets there, it doesn't look exactly as advertised. So I think it's great to be able to look at your art right there in person, because the colors pop, the design work is flawless in my opinion, and I think it fits Metallica's attitude. You know, Metallica is one of those artists that you can get silly with and you can get serious with, and then you can get everything in between, because James and the guys, contrary to popular belief, they do have a sense of humor about them. They're not, you know, they're not serious 24/7, you know? So
I agree. And that's one of the things that makes me more happy, to see the people wearing the t-shirts at the venues. It's amazing. It's, like I said, it's a dream come true. It's people who likes my art and likes the band. It's crazy, man, you know?
Yeah. Obviously, Metallica is a big crossover with a lot of our listeners and fans of Ghost, but so is Sleep Token, which I know that there's a couple of art pieces you've done of theirs as well.
That band is, well, it blew my mind when I first started listening. I always love costumes and masks, and that's the thing I love about some bands. But it was so weird, the sensation, the vibe they gave me, like it was something Lovecraftian, you know, something cosmic horror, you know, the marks they use on masks. I was very curious, and I started to listen to their music, and wow, those guys are very, very talented musicians.
Yeah, I tell people all the time that, because somebody asked me the other day, they said, describe Ghost. And I said, okay, it's pop music meets Satan, but it meets Black Sabbath and ABBA at the same time. And they're like, okay, right on. And then somebody said, well, how would you describe Sleep Token? And without missing a beat, I said, it's heavy metal hosier. That's pretty much what I would describe it as, but not in a bad way. It's good. That's another band that I'm still like diving into more day by day, because I know there are a lot of fans of Ghost and Sleep Token that cross over that are hugely into the lore of both bands, which I'm still discovering the lore of Sleep Token, so I'm getting more into that day by day. Yeah. So like, has that a band that you've reached out to making merch for? Because I think they'd probably fucking take it, man, honestly, because the one design I've seen of them that you did is really great. Vessel, you did one of Vessel. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, I still don't know who those merch for them. Oh, really? So I got to find out and then create some more fun art so I can turn heads.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you got to build a portfolio up on that one.
Yeah, and but I would love to work with them. I would love to do some artwork for them. Yeah, I think it's, like I say, it's on my alley, right up my alley. Is that horror, that cosmic horror, those masks, the new masks are awesome. So I would love to do something for them.
So the other stuff that you've worked on, like before we wrap up, the other stuff that you've worked on, which I think is actually really cool, like you've done work with Fangoria and Last Podcast on the Left, which like that's a legendary podcast at this point.
Yeah.
And you still do work, from what I know, with the t-shirt company Cavity Colors. Like, can you talk to us a little bit about all that?
Yeah, I started working with Fangoria when it became volume 2. It was out of print for a while.
Yeah.
And it was just starting, and I found the email on their website and asked, I'm an artist, can I work with you? And at that moment, the editor, Phil Novile Jr., was looking for an artist to create art for an article. So he gave me the opportunity. So I've done about about 6 pieces for Fangoria. There's only 4 issues of Fangoria that came each year, so it's not a monthly. It's like 3 months between each issue. Mm-hmm. So I probably been working with them for 2 years in what artwork refers. And then I started working with Cavity Colors. That was one of my goals. Like I said, is making art for my favorite movie franchises was always the goal to achieve, the thing I wanted the most. And I was working with another great t-shirt company from the UK that is named Hell on Shirts. They do the same thing as Cavity Colors, but in the UK. And they gave me the opportunity to create art for them. We started with an Evil Dead 2 t-shirt, and I love Evil Dead is my favorite movie franchise. And wow, it was amazing. And then Cavity Colors noticed that I was working with Hell on Shirts, and I asked the guy who owns the brand. For a while, he didn't respond. I thought it was going to be harder to get to work with them. And just one day, he messaged me and asked me if I wanted to create a Howling t-shirt. And then we started rolling with more movie franchises. I created art for Godzilla, art for Army of Darkness, Chucky. It was a horror dream come true.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, I remembered seeing stuff for Reanimator and The Thing. Yeah, those are all like some of my very favorite movies. The Evil Dead franchise, like I mentioned way earlier, along with Nightmare on Elm Street, that is my favorite. And I sit there and I hold Evil Dead 2: Dead by Dawn in very high regard. That's probably my favorite out of the entire franchise, and it's right next to Army of Darkness, which I don't think that there's been a bad movie in that franchise, at all. They're all great. And
yeah, even the reboot and the Evil Dead Rise are very good.
Yeah, and that is up there with Evil Dead 2 for me. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I love it. Can't wait to see the new ones.
Yeah, me too, man. It's because I like that they're just going to make it, which I think it should be, anthology style, like they're doing now, because it's perfect. That's kind of how they were trying to do the Halloween franchise, whenever Season of the Witch came out, which I think Season of the Witch is vastly underrated. I think it's a great horror movie.
It's great.
Yeah. So you know what? That would be a cool design. I don't know if you have so much art that I have like delved through. Season of the Witch would be something fun to draw, like with the silver shamrock masks and all that stuff. My God.
Yeah, I've done for Hell on Shirts. I did a Halloween 3 t-shirt, and it was very popular.
Good. I'll have to search it out. Like I feel bad that I hadn't seen it, but like being in the UK, that's probably why I actually hadn't heard of Hell on Shirts until you said something. So like I definitely want to go check it out now.
You have to check it out. They are so cool. The stuff is so cool.
Awesome. Well, I'm pretty sure our UK listeners are going to be like, Richie, what the fuck?
What the fuck, Richard?
You need to get with the program. I'll do my best. I promise I'll do my best to go check it out. So, yeah. And then Last Podcast on the Left, man. How did that come about? Because, like, dude, they've been around for so damn long. It's like a staple of podcasts. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think all the horror, aliens, and true crime podcasts are a copy of last podcast of the left.
Yeah.
I created some. I started listening to them, and I was these guys are so fun. I love the podcast since the beginning, and I created some fan art, and they're responsible for their merch, saw the art, and bought that design from me. As they have this thing like the monthly fan art T-shirt. So they buy art from a fan, and they put it on a shirt and upload it on their merch website. And that's how it started. I did this design for the T-shirt, and a few months ago, they asked me if I could create a new image for the podcast, to the image on Spotify, and they wanted me to create a new image for that. So I was among other artists creating that art. The one I created didn't make the cut for the image they wanted to use for those platforms, but they liked it enough to use it on their live tour. So they are touring and doing this like stand-up thing, and on the screens on the venues they are projecting the art I created for them, and that's very cool. And I love that guys. It's so much fun to listen, and they have so much things that you can create art for.
Yeah, that's always the fun part. Is like if you're asked to do, or if you want to do, a project for something that has such depth, and they have so many episodes and so many inside jokes and so many references and one-liners to work off of. That's got to tickle that, creative part of your brain so much.
Exactly. That's what happened. And I just love working with them. And probably that illustration is going to be on T-shirts too.
Awesome, dude. So you do the comic circuit a lot, like the Comic-Con circuit a lot from what I've seen. Like what are some of your favorite places to visit whenever you're doing those?
I've been to LA, San Jose, California. I went to Seattle several times. That was so cool. And I have gone to Ecuador. That was crazy too.
That's awesome.
And I do every year the biggest comic book show in Mexico that is called La Mole.
Awesome, man. Have you been able to make the East Coast in the United States yet? Like anywhere like in New York or
No, I would love to. Hope that happens soon. I just applied to the New York Comic Con, but haven't received any response.
Dude, you should do C2E2 in Chicago if you haven't yet.
No, I haven't. Chicago, that sounds great.
Yeah, dude. Like I'm telling you right now, that area right there is prime for your work. Like, if I have met anybody from the Midwest, horror is their shit, and horror and metal music is absolutely right up their alley. I think your stuff would do great up there. You should definitely check the Chicago area out.
Oh, I will. Thank you for the tip.
Yeah, for sure, man. So before we get out of here, man, is there anywhere that anybody on social media should be following you if they want to keep up with your work?
Yeah, you can follow me in Instagram at Puis Calzada, as it sounds. I'm on X as Puis Calzada and on Facebook as Puis Calzada. You can find me there, follow my work, and I keep updating constantly.
Yeah, you post a lot, which is really good. It's engaging. It's fun. I love seeing your art pop up on my feed all the time.
Thank you.
You're welcome, dude. And for anybody out there listening, I'm going to make it easy for you. Scroll to the show notes below and just click the corresponding links, and you can find Puis on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter/X.
That's great. Thank you very much. This is amazing. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm sorry, I don't practice my English very much, so
dude, you're just fine. You sound just fine, and you know what? I like that. I want people to be exactly who they are, and that's all I ever ask anybody. Just be yourself. Just be yourself, man. And this has been you're welcome, man. This has been a huge pleasure to have you on, and I am so grateful for your time and the opportunity to speak to you, because I'm a huge fan of your work, and I hope that everybody you're welcome. And I hope that everybody out there that hasn't heard of you goes and checks you out and becomes a fan just like me. So
I appreciate it. I appreciate this opportunity. I love what you're doing, and I couldn't thank you enough for this.
Oh, you're very welcome. And dude, you're welcome back on. I tell everybody this, and I really mean it. You're welcome back on literally anytime you want to come hang out and talk movies or comics or anything like that. That is right up my alley, and it's always a pleasure.
Hopefully, we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely. Please, thanks a lot, my friend, and I will catch you down the road, okay, bud?
Thank you.
And once again, everybody, if you want to follow Puis on social media, I have the links in the show notes below for you to check that out, as well as his portfolio. Most of it can be found on Instagram, which I highly suggest you visit. For past, present, and future episodes of GonstFM Off Air, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. You can leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. You can leave a rating and comment on individual episodes on Spotify. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, please leave a like, leave a comment below, consider subscribing to the channel, and clicking the bell for notifications for future episodes. If you would like to attend one of our monthly GonstFM Station Head radio rituals, if you would like to buy official GonstFM merchandise, or if you would like to join the official GonstFM Facebook group, GonstFam, all of this can be found in the show notes below. And so, my dearest Gonslings, that brings today's episode to a close. Some of you I will see in Internet Land, and the rest of you I will see in GonstFam. Take care of yourselves, and remember, until next time, in Gonst, we tronst. I'm Richie. I'll see you next time.